Now, our next guest knows all about those markets and Russia's dependence on oil revenue. Vladimir Milov is Vice President for International Advocacy at the Free Russia Foundation, and he's also a former Deputy Minister of Energy of Russia. And he joins us now from Vilnius, Lithuania. Thanks so much for being here with us. So we've seen all of these sanctions against Russia, but the ruble hasn't tanked. Russia's GDP didn't contract as much as many expected. So the question is, are the sanctions actually working?
Good morning, and I would strongly advise against concentrating on a handful of misleading macro indicators like everybody mentions GDP and the ruble rate. That's the last thing you really want to look at while judging on the impact of sanctions. You really have to do a deep cross-sectoral look at what happens with various sectors of the economy. There is a very deep contraction going on there. GDP is distorted by all of this military production. Like, the biggest item in terms of growth in industrial output last year was uniforms. We can see all those uniforms rotting in Ukrainian battlefields. So there's a distortion there. Same with the ruble exchange rate. Strengthening came at near total destruction of ruble's free convertibility. And a lot of Russian industries are suffering from artificially strengthened rubles. So yes, sanctions are having a big impact.
Yeah, if you look at industries like the car industry, for example, I know that has shrunk significantly. But Russia has done its best to mitigate the damage of the sanctions by increasing trade with Asia, for instance. Is that enough?
No, I think it's definitely insufficient because the critical technologies, critical component parts are coming from the West. Sometimes they are unique and they're not localized neither in Russia nor in China, sufficient to the extent that they can hold down major industrial projects like production of LNG in the Arctic. That depends on some critical technologies like heat exchangers manufactured by German company Linde or American Air Products. China does not do that. So yes, sanctions will have a bigger impact over time because Russia has more or less avoided a catastrophe by all of its accumulated reserves and temporary surpluses, but it's beginning to bite now.
Yeah, time is key, but so is sort of unanimity. I mean, we saw some Western companies like McDonald's, Ford Motors, and so on pull out of Russia. But a new study found that less than 9% of about 1,400 EU and G7 companies that had subsidiaries in Russia before the invasion have actually divested at least one subsidiary. So despite all these sanctions, many companies, including American ones, are still perfectly happy to do business there and in doing so contribute to the Russian economy.
That is a major problem because we saw many promises by Western companies that they're going to leave Russia after the invasion, but many of them have actually stayed. This keeps Putin's economy afloat in a sense. Another way is circumvention of sanctions through third countries which have not joined, like Turkey or United Arab Emirates or others. So I think I've talked to a lot of Western policymakers in the recent days about that. The mood is there that the 2023 will be a year of ensuring compliance with the sanctions that were already adopted rather than probably adopting new ones, because the compliance is key and it's not being so successful. Many circumventions, and this is something that really helps Putin to stay afloat.
Yeah, so despite all the sanctions, do you find that these sanctions are affecting sort of the Russian, ordinary Russians or the elite, or has the government been able to sort of insulate them from the worst of the effects so far?
They will. Don't expect anything to happen fast. Russia is a country with big inertia, but you can see across the board with various opinion polls that many Russians are, over a third of Russians last year have started to actually save money and reduce their consumption on basic food and products. There is a statistics which have recorded a significant increase in shoplifting. Many people, like 2/3, are noticing deteriorated quality of everything from cars to telecoms and many other goods and services. So quality of life is decreasing significantly, and this will begin to bite politically and socially. We just need to be patient.
So the ultimate assessment of whether the sanctions are working is, of course, whether it's putting actual pressure on Putin to end the war, and we haven't seen any sign of that or any sign of cracks in the regime yet.
Because to expect it quick was naive in the first place. Russia had accumulated significant reserves. It has some room for maneuver in diverting to Asia in import substitution and so on. But over time, sanctions would lead to that effect. Sanctions would significantly weaken Putin's system. Again, strategic patience is needed. We don't need to run looking for a watch every 5 minutes, like if Putin haven't stopped the war, then sanctions are not working. This is not the criteria. We need strategic patience.
All right, patience is key. Really appreciate your insights on this. Vladimir Milov, thank you so much.
Thank you.